What if I told you that there is a secret gospel hidden by the Vatican because its content could change everything we know about Jesus and the Church? It seems impossible, doesn't it? But the truth is that, throughout history, documents have been hidden, books have been banned, and secrets have been buried in the darkest archives of the Vatican's secret library. What don't they want you to find out? What could be so dangerous as to be censored by the Church itself? If you believe you already know the whole truth about Christianity, prepare to question everything. There are ancient texts that contradict the official narrative, forbidden writings that talk about a version of Jesus that few know. Why was this information hidden? What could happen if they surfaced? The Church has always had absolute control over what should or should not be considered sacred. But what if I told you that there are Gospels that were deliberately removed from the Bible? That certain historical accounts were erased to maintain a single point of view? Why does the Vatican keep these documents under lock and key? Imagine for a moment that the faith of billions of people may have been shaped by decisions made centuries ago by a select group of religious leaders. What if Jesus' teachings had been changed? What if there was something in these scriptures that could change everything we believe? Now I ask you, have you ever heard of the Gospel of Thomas, from the Gospel of Mary Magdalene, from the Gospel of Judas? These are just some of the apocryphal texts that challenge the traditional version of the Gospels, and the Vatican knows it. But here's the most shocking detail. These are not just historical documents. What is hidden within these Gospels can reveal hidden truths about the mysteries of faith, about conspiracies within the Church, and even about secret prophecies never before revealed. The question that remains is, what would happen if this secret was revealed to the world? How would the Church react? And most importantly, what does this mean for you? If you want to understand why these texts were banned and the impact they could have, keep watching, because what comes next could be even more shocking. But before revealing the secrets that the Vatican tries to hide, I want to invite you to something very special. If you believe that the truth needs to be revealed and that knowledge is power, leave your comment with a prayer request. Prayer has immense power, and together we can seek more wisdom, more discernment, and more spiritual protection. No matter what your belief, if there's something in your heart that needs an answer, write it in the comments. Let's pray for you. And don't forget, leave your like right now. This helps YouTube understand that this content is relevant and gives more people access to this hidden information. Subscribe to the channel and activate the bell, because in the next videos, we will delve even deeper into the mysteries of the Church, the forbidden Gospels, and the secrets that have never been told. Now hold on tight, because what comes next could shake everything you believe in. Have you ever stopped to think about why some sacred texts were removed from the Bible? What is it about these documents that caused the Church to hide them for centuries? The apocryphal Gospels are ancient writings that talk about Jesus, his teachings, and the mysteries of faith, but were excluded from the official version of the Bible. Who decided this? By what authority were these scriptures rejected? And most importantly, what do these texts say that the Church doesn't want you to know? During the first centuries of Christianity, many Gospels circulated among the followers of Jesus. Some described their miracles in different ways. Others brought messages that challenged the doctrine we know today. Among them were the Gospel of Thomas, the Gospel of Mary Magdalene, the Gospel of Judas, and many others that were considered dangerous to the traditional Christian faith. But dangerous for whom? For the people, or for those who wanted to control the narrative? The question is, why does the Vatican hide these Gospels? What is it about them that could shake the faith of millions of people? If these texts were written by people who lived close to Jesus, why were they rejected and replaced by just 4 official Gospels? Was this a spiritual choice or a political decision? The Gospel of Thomas, for example, is one of the most controversial. It does not narrate the events of Jesus' life, like the canonical Gospels, but contains secret teachings assigned to him. There are passages that suggest that the kingdom of God is within each of us, without the need for a religious institution as an intermediary. Could this explain why the Church did not want this text to be widely circulated? If people knew that the connection with God is direct, without needing a temple, rituals, or an ecclesiastical hierarchy, Would this weaken the power of the institution? Another text that was banned is Gospel of Mary Magdalene. This gospel brings a totally different view of the role of women in the Christian faith and suggests that Mary Magdalene was more than just a follower of Jesus. Some interpretations indicate that she would have had a role of spiritual leadership, something that completely contradicted the patriarchal structure of the church. Could this be the real reason for their history to be erased? And the Gospel of Judas? This is perhaps one of the most shocking. He describes Judas not as a traitor, but as someone who played a fundamental role in Jesus' plan. If this is true, the entire betrayal story changes completely. And here is the question: how many other details have been altered, hidden, or destroyed over the centuries? The Vatican's secret library contains thousands of ancient manuscripts, some of which have never been revealed to the public. Why does the Church keep these documents under lock and key? If there is nothing to hide, why prohibit access? What is there in these texts that can challenge everything we believe about Christianity? The truth is that information control has always been a powerful tool. Since the Middle Ages, the Church determined what could and could not be read, what knowledge should be taught, and what should be destroyed. Burned books, hidden parchments, forbidden texts. All this to ensure that only one version of the story was accepted. But is this version really the absolute truth? Now I ask you, if you had access to these forbidden Gospels, would you read them? Do you believe that the Church may be hiding information that would change our view of Jesus? Comment here below. I want to know the truth. If you also believe that these secrets need to be revealed. What you are about to discover could forever change your view of Christianity. The Vatican has for centuries hidden texts that contradict the Church's official narrative. Documents that provide impactful information about Jesus, his teachings, and even the role of those who followed him. But there is one in particular that generates controversy to this day, a text so controversial that, if it were accepted as true, it could shake the foundations of the Christian faith. This gospel brings a completely different view of Jesus and the apostles. He could change the Christian faith forever. We are talking about Gospel of Mary Magdalene. Have you heard of him? If the only image you have of Mary Magdalene is that of a repentant, marginalized follower, a sinner who was forgiven by Jesus, then know that this may not be the whole truth. What the Vatican doesn't want you to know is that Mary Magdalene may have played a much greater role in the history of Christianity than we are told. This lost gospel presents Mary as a leader, someone who understood Jesus' teachings more deeply than any other disciple. And more than that, there are passages that indicate that she possessed secret knowledge that Peter and the other apostles did not have. Now think about it. Why does the Church so emphasize the figure of Peter as the pillar of the Christian faith, but makes a point of minimizing the role of Mary Magdalene? Has the true message of Jesus been distorted to favor an exclusively male power structure? Did church leaders, over the centuries, want to erase the importance of Mary because her presence challenged the patriarchal hierarchy? What would happen if this gospel were accepted as a legitimate part of Christ's teachings? The most shocking thing is that this document has not been found recently. It was missing for centuries, but excerpts from it were discovered in the 19th century in Egypt, among other Gnostic writings. But the Church quickly rejected it, saying it was not an authentic text, that it was not inspired by God. But who decided this? By what authority can one determine which words are or are not legitimate when we talk about the story of Jesus? What is behind the Church's fear of accepting the existence of other versions of the faith? And the most surprising thing is that this gospel suggests that Jesus entrusted Mary Magdalene with deeper spiritual teachings, that she had a special connection with him, something that the other disciples did not understand. There is a passage in which Peter questions why Jesus shared revelations with Mary and not with others. Pedro's jealousy and resistance are evident, and this raises a very serious question. If Mary Magdalene was such a close disciple of Jesus, why was her voice silenced? What the Church fears is that if we accept this gospel as true, we would have to reconsider everything we know about the role of women in Christianity. We would have to question whether the faith we know today is truly based on the original teachings of Jesus, or whether it has been shaped over the centuries to suit the interests of those in power. This would explain why the Vatican keeps so many hidden documents, so many texts locked in the secret library, away from the public eye. The fear that a hidden truth will come to light may be what keeps these manuscripts out of the hands of ordinary people. And this is not the only gospel that contradicts the official story. The Gospel of Judas, for example, presents a completely different version of Jesus' betrayal. According to this text, Judas was not a traitor, but rather the most faithful disciple, the one who understood Christ's true plan and who, therefore, had the difficult mission of handing him over so that his mission could be accomplished. If this view is true, then the entire story we learn about the Passion of Christ would have been manipulated to create a villain. This raises an even deeper question. How many other events in the Bible could have been altered, distorted, or hidden? The truth is that there are secrets that have never been completely revealed, documents that can change our understanding of faith, Jesus, and the first followers of Christianity. What is hidden in the Vatican archives may shed new light on the mysteries of the faith or may reveal truths that those in power never wanted us to know. But now, the decision is yours. Do you believe the Church may be withholding information? Do you think these forbidden gospels should be revealed to the world? The truth may be closer than we imagine, but are we ready for it? If all of this has made you question what we really know about the teachings of Jesus so far, get ready. Because what lies within this forbidden gospel may be even more surprising. The Gospel of Mary Magdalene contains passages that call into question everything the Church has taught us. Why did the Church decide to hide this document? What does it contradict in the official version? After all, if this text is just an old story like so many others, why did the Vatican try so hard to erase it from history? One of the most impactful passages in this gospel describes a moment in which Mary Magdalene shares a revelation that would have been given to her directly by Jesus. According to this manuscript, after the resurrection, Jesus did not appear first to Peter, nor to John, nor to any other disciple, but to Mary. And more than that, he would have instructed her to transmit her teachings to others, something that generated revolt among the male disciples. There is a passage where Peter, clearly uncomfortable, asks, "Why would Jesus speak to a woman and not us?" Mary's response is direct and powerful. "He saw that I was worthy." Now think about this for a moment. For centuries, we have been taught that Peter was the rock on which Jesus built his church, that he was chosen to continue the teachings of the Messiah. But what if, in fact, Mary Magdalene had been the true spiritual heir of Christ's words? What would happen to the structure of the church if people discovered that authority should not have been given to men alone, but that a woman could have been the true leader of Christianity? And this is not the only controversial passage. There are also excerpts that indicate that Mary Magdalene had a secret knowledge that the other disciples did not have, something that Jesus would have entrusted only to her. This knowledge would be related to a deeper understanding of spirituality, a direct connection between the soul and the divine, something that went beyond the rituals and dogmas imposed later by the church. If this is true, it means that Jesus taught something much more powerful than what we have been told, something that could free people from dependence on a religious institution. This gospel also suggests that Jesus' message was focused on the inner search for individual spiritual enlightenment, unlike the official version, which reinforces the need for a church, for intermediaries between man and God. This text affirms that true salvation is within each one of us. Now think about the impact of this. If the connection to God is within us, then why would we need religious leaders to tell us what to do? Why would we need to follow rules imposed by an institution? Could this be the real reason this gospel was banned? Could it be that the church feared losing its influence and control over the faithful if people discovered that spirituality is something personal, something that cannot be controlled by dogmas and hierarchies? And it's not just that. The Gospel of Mary Magdalene also reveals something even more disturbing for the church. There are interpretations that suggest that Jesus and Mary had a much closer relationship than we have been taught. Some scholars claim that the texts indicate that she was not just a follower, but a companion, a person that Jesus loved deeply. If this is true, then why did the church insist on erasing her from history, reducing her importance, and transforming her into a secondary figure? Now, do you understand why this gospel was banned? He completely challenges the traditional narrative of the church, calling into question not only male leadership within Christianity, but also the structure of ecclesiastical power itself. If this document were accepted as true, it could rewrite everything we know about Jesus and the origins of the Christian faith. And the most impressive thing is that this is not the only text that brings shocking information. There are other apocryphal gospels that were also banned, censored, and destroyed, so that only a single version of the story was told. And the question remains, how many other secrets does the Vatican keep hidden? How many documents are locked away in their secret libraries, away from the public eye? What else have we been denied? If this gospel has reached us even after centuries of censorship, what else might be lurking in the shadows, waiting to be discovered? Now I want to know your opinion. Do you believe this gospel should be accepted as part of the history of Christianity? Do you think the Church is afraid of people discovering this truth? Comment below. The Vatican cannot hide the truth. Leave your comment and tell me what you think about this mystery. And if this video is making you reflect, leave a like right now. This helps YouTube understand that this topic is important and gives more people access to this hidden information. Subscribe to the channel and activate the bell, because in the next videos, we will further explore these forbidden gospels and other secrets that the Church tried to erase from history. What's to come could be even more surprising. If the Gospel of Mary Magdalene brings such a different and revealing version of Jesus, then an inevitable question arises. Why did the Church ban this gospel? What was it about this text that represented such a threat to the institution? The fact is that since the first centuries of Christianity, the Church has played a central role in defining what should be considered sacred and what should be forgotten. But were these choices made solely for spiritual reasons, or was there something more? Did the content of this gospel threaten the authority of the Church in a way that could put its entire power structure at risk? To understand this, we need to go back in time. In the first centuries after Jesus' death, Christianity was not a single, unified religion. On the contrary, there were countless schools of thought, different interpretations of Christ's teachings, and a great diversity of texts considered sacred by different groups. There were the Gospels that were later canonized, but there were also many others that circulated among the first followers of Jesus. What happened then? What caused some texts to be accepted and others rejected? The answer is in Council of Nicaea in 325 AD, when Emperor Constantine decided that it was necessary to organize the Christian faith in a standardized way. This was a decisive moment in the history of the Church, as it was there that it was defined which texts would be part of the Bible and which would be considered heretical. Gospels that reinforced the power structure and hierarchy of the Church were preserved, while those that suggested different interpretations were excluded, persecuted, and destroyed. What is clear is that the choice of biblical texts was not only a matter of faith, but also a decision policy, a way of ensuring that Christianity became a centralized religion controlled by a single authority. Now, think about it. The Gospel of Mary Magdalene represented a great threat to this structure, because it not only questioned the idea of a hierarchical church, but also highlighted female leadership. If this text had been accepted, the history of Christianity would have been completely different. Women could have played a central role in the Christian faith, and the male-dominated power of the Church would have been challenged from the beginning. This would explain why this gospel was rejected, and Mary Magdalene was transformed over the centuries into a marginal figure, often portrayed as a sinner rather than a spiritual leader. But that wasn't the only reason. Another point that deeply bothered the Church was the idea, present in this gospel, that the true connection with God did not depend on temples, rituals, or intermediaries. The Church has always reinforced the idea that it is necessary to follow its doctrines, participate in the sacraments, and obey the ecclesiastical hierarchy to achieve salvation. But what if Jesus' own teaching said otherwise? What if he had actually taught that divinity is within each of us, and that we don't need a religious institution to find the truth? If people believed that they could have a direct relationship with God without needing the Church, what would happen to the power of the institution? How would she maintain her authority if people realized that faith does not need to be controlled? The Gospel of Mary Magdalene suggests exactly this, that spiritual knowledge is something individual, which cannot be determined by dogmas or imposed laws. And this idea was completely unacceptable to those who wanted to transform Christianity into an organized religion with rigid rules and a well-defined power structure. Furthermore, there is another even more controversial aspect: the possible relationship between Jesus and Mary Magdalene. This gospel suggests that Mary was Jesus' favorite disciple, the one to whom he entrusted special teachings. Some scholars believe that this closeness may indicate a deeper bond between the two, which challenges the traditional image of a single Jesus, dedicated only to his divine mission. If this were true, the Church would have every reason to censor this information, as it would undermine the doctrine that has been built over the centuries. And we cannot forget that the Church has had a history of persecution against texts and beliefs that were not in accordance with its official vision. During the Middle Ages, the Inquisition persecuted and eliminated anyone who questioned the authority of the Church. Books were burned, documents were hidden, secrets were buried. To this day, the Vatican's secret library holds thousands of ancient manuscripts, many of which have never been accessed by the public. If there is nothing to hide, why does the Church keep these documents locked away? What is clear is that the Gospel of Mary Magdalene was banned because it contradicted the interests of those who wanted to establish a Christianity based on control and obedience. This gospel not only suggests that Jesus taught a freer spirituality, but also places Mary Magdalene as a leader, something that went against everything imposed by the Church throughout history. If this text had been accepted, the entire structure of religious power could have been different. If this gospel was kept secret for so long, imagine what else could be hidden. If by now you have realized the extent of the controversy behind the apocryphal Gospels and the enormous threat they pose to the Church, then you need to know that this was not just an issue of the past. Many academics have tried to bring this truth to light and have been silenced. And this didn't just happen in the first centuries of Christianity. To this day, there is a great effort to discredit, censor, and prevent certain information from coming to light. What does the Vatican fear so much? Why do those who try to reveal what has been hidden end up facing obstacles, persecution, and, in some cases, even mysteriously disappearing? The Church has always had a history of repression against any idea that challenged its dogmas. Since the Middle Ages, scholars, researchers, and even priests who dared to question the official version of events faced severe punishment. Just remember what happened to Giordano Bruno, burned alive in a public square because he defended concepts that contradicted the Church, or to Galileo Galilei, sentenced to house arrest for stating that the Earth revolved around the Sun. And that was just the beginning. Over the centuries, this censorship strategy has not disappeared. On the contrary, it has become even more sophisticated. In the 20th century, some researchers began to find fragments of texts that seemed to challenge the traditional narrative of Christianity. One of the most emblematic cases was the discovery of Dead Sea Scrolls in 1947. These documents, found in caves near the Dead Sea, contained religious writings that shed new light on Jewish and Christian beliefs during the time of Jesus. But what caught our attention was the fact that many of the discoveries made from these manuscripts were simply not released to the public. Large parts of the documents were locked away in secret archives and, for decades, only a small group of scholars had access to the complete material. What was in these writings that could not be shared? Why did the Church show so much interest in controlling what would be disclosed and what would remain hidden? Another intriguing case happened to the Nag Hammadi Gospels, a collection of Gnostic manuscripts found in Egypt in 1945. Among them was the Gospel of Thomas, which presents teachings attributed to Jesus in a very different way from the canonical Gospels. Scholars who analyzed these texts quickly realized that they contradicted the idea of an institutionalized and hierarchical church. Instead, these Gospels suggested that the path to God was an inward journey, something that each person could seek for themselves, without needing priests, rituals, or dogma. Once again, this represented a direct threat to the power of the Church. Researchers who attempted to disseminate the Nag Hammadi Gospels faced a number of difficulties. Some were publicly discredited, had their careers ruined, and were accused of trying to distort history. Others, like theologian John Allegro, who studied the Dead Sea Scrolls, were the target of such intense attacks and criticism that their discoveries were practically buried. Allegro suggested that certain aspects of religious traditions were being manipulated, and that there was strong resistance to prevent certain truths from coming to light. Was he right? And if he was, why did so many forces come together to silence him? And these cases are not isolated. To this day, scholars trying to investigate secret Vatican documents face insurmountable barriers. The Vatican's secret library holds thousands of ancient texts, but access to these documents is extremely restricted. Why does an institution that preaches truth and light keep archives inaccessible to the public? Why are scholars who try to examine these manuscripts constantly blocked or have their research hampered? What is hidden there that cannot be revealed? There are also reports of priests and religious people who throughout history have had access to certain forbidden information and tried to share it with the world, only to be quickly silenced. A famous case was that of the Jesuit priest Malachi Martin, who claimed to have knowledge of dark secrets within the Vatican. He spoke openly about the existence of hidden documents that could shake the faith of millions of people. Shortly after his revelations, he passed away in circumstances considered mysterious by many. And there are even rumors about researchers who tried to delve too deeply into these mysteries and simply disappeared. Theories say that certain secret orders within the Vatican act to protect this information at any cost. Does it look like something from a movie? Perhaps, but the facts show that whenever someone gets too close to the truth, unexpected obstacles arise. How is it possible that, after so many centuries, there are still sacred texts that have never been completely revealed? All of this leads us to a fundamental question. What else is being hidden? If we know that documents were censored, that gospels were deleted, and that scholars were persecuted for trying to expose this information, then it is not unreasonable to imagine that there is much more that we still don't know. What if the Vatican actually has records that could rewrite the history of Christianity? What if there is concrete evidence that certain events were altered, manipulated, or even invented to strengthen the authority of the Church? If this information came to light, what would happen to the faith of millions of people? Now I want to know your opinion. Do you think the Church really hides important information to maintain its power? Do you believe that people are being silenced to this day to prevent these truths from coming to light? Comment here below. The truth needs to be revealed, to show that you too want these secrets to be finally exposed. And most importantly, will we one day have access to the whole truth, or will it remain buried forever? If there's one thing history has taught us, it's that information is power. The Vatican, as one of the world's most influential institutions for centuries, has always been at the center of great mysteries. But what if I told you that there are hidden documents under lock and key within the Vatican secret library, which may contain answers about the forbidden gospels and truths that have never been revealed to the public? What if the Church always knew the truth but chose to hide it to maintain control of the narrative? The Vatican's secret library is one of the most restricted places on the planet. Few people have access to its archives, and those who do gain entry face a bureaucratic maze to obtain permission to read just a fraction of the documents. But why? What could be so dangerous to keep hidden? If the Church defends the truth, then why not allow the world to know everything that is stored there? It is estimated that this library has more than 85 kilometers of shelves full of manuscripts, historical records, and documents covering centuries of history. Among these documents, there are writings dating back to the beginnings of Christianity, correspondence between popes and world leaders, records of conspiracies and sacred texts that were never revealed to the public. What if within these archives is evidence that certain gospels were intentionally removed? What if there is evidence that the story of Jesus was modified over time to favor the authority of the Church? There are researchers who believe that these files contain texts that show a different version of Christianity, one that could collapse the power structure that the Church has built over the centuries. What if we discovered that Jesus' original teachings were very different from what we were taught? What if there was proof that he did not intend to found an institutionalized religion, but rather to transmit spiritual knowledge free from dogma? This would explain why certain documents were never revealed. In addition to the apocryphal Gospels, there are records that the Vatican keeps hidden prophecies, texts about future events that, according to some theories, could cause panic if they were released. One of the most controversial documents is the third part of the Secret of Fatima, which many believe contains catastrophic predictions for the Church and the world. Are these secrets so impactful that they could shake the faith of millions of people? Does the Church hide these texts to prevent the truth from coming to light? There are also indications that the Vatican may have records of historical events that have been manipulated. Some believe that documents stored there could reveal the true role of the Church at crucial moments in history, such as the colonization of the Americas, the Crusades, and even the Second World War. If these documents were revealed, would the Church's reputation be irreversibly damaged? Another important detail is that, throughout history, several organizations have tried to gain access to these documents without success. During World War II, there are reports that Adolf Hitler attempted to obtain certain archives from the Vatican that he claimed they carried secrets about Jesus' lineage and the power of the Church in world politics. More recently, groups of independent historians and researchers have been pushing for more transparency, but access remains extremely restricted. And let's not forget the countless stories of people who allegedly gained access to parts of these files and then mysteriously disappeared or were discredited. Reports indicate that priests, bishops, and even lay researchers who tried to reveal Vatican secrets faced severe consequences. Why do so many people who get too close to the truth end up being silenced? Is it coincidence? Or is there a force acting behind the scenes to keep certain information away from the public? If there are so many hidden secrets, it is inevitable to ask, what else does the Vatican hide? If the Church tries so hard to maintain control over its narrative, then the truth that is hidden must be much more impactful than we imagine. What if inside those shelves is the true story of Jesus, different from the one we know? What if there is evidence that the banned Gospels were deliberately censored to maintain the authority of the Church? If there are so many secrets hidden, imagine what else could be about to be discovered. If everything we've said so far has made you question the true history of Christianity, get ready, because the implications of these hidden secrets could be even deeper. Was the story of Jesus manipulated? What else could be hidden? For centuries, the Catholic Church exercised absolute control over the religious narrative, determining which texts were sacred, which should be excluded, and which interpretations would be accepted as true. But what if some of these decisions were not just spiritual, but also political? What if Jesus' original teachings had been modified to suit the interests of those who wanted to transform his message into an instrument of power? We know that Jesus preached a message of love, compassion, and justice, but we also know that he was a great revolutionary. He challenged the religious elite of the time, denounced the abuses of priests, and questioned the hypocrisy of those who positioned themselves as representatives of God, but exploited the people. If this was the essence of Christ's message, then why, throughout history, has the Church become an institution that accumulated wealth, participated in wars, and imposed dogmas that were often contradictory to the teachings of Jesus? This leads us to a disturbing question. Could it be that the true message of Christ was altered so that the Church could consolidate its dominion over people? The Forbidden Gospels suggest that Jesus may have conveyed teachings very different from those recorded in canonical texts. The Gospel of Thomas, for example, emphasizes that the kingdom of God is not a physical location, but rather a state of consciousness that can be accessed through self-knowledge. This idea goes against traditional doctrine, which teaches that salvation can only be achieved through the Church and its sacraments. If Jesus truly taught that each person has within themselves the key to their own connection with the divine, then why did the Church make a point of silencing this gospel? What would happen if people realized that they didn't need intermediaries to connect with God? Another point that raises many doubts is related to the figure of Jesus himself. Do we know the truth about who he really was? There are theories that suggest that historical records were erased or altered to create a more convenient version of their history. For centuries, the image of Jesus has been shaped according to the interests of those who govern the Christian faith. But what if there was hidden information about his origin, his lineage, or even his relationship with important figures of the time? Some researchers claim that certain secret Vatican documents could contain information about Jesus' childhood, his lost teachings, and even details about his supposed relationship with Mary Magdalene. But if these documents really exist, Why have they never been revealed? And what about the mysteries surrounding the resurrection? This is the central basis of Christianity, the great miracle that confirms Jesus as the Son of God. But have all the reports about this event been preserved in full? There are ancient texts that suggest different interpretations of what really happened after the crucifixion. The Gospel of Peter, one of the apocryphal writings that the Church rejected, presents a version of events that differs from the canonical Gospels. In some passages, there are mystical descriptions and symbolism that indicate that the meaning of the resurrection may be much deeper than the literal version we have been taught. Why were these texts suppressed? What is it, about them that could make people question the official story? And if we look at the New Testament itself, we see that there is evidence that certain events may have been changed or added later. Did you know that the first gospel manuscripts did not mention the passage in which Jesus tells Peter that he will be the stone on which his church will be built? This passage, fundamental to the authority of the Catholic Church, only appeared in later manuscripts. This means that there is a real possibility that certain parts of the Bible have been intentionally modified over time to reinforce the Church's position. Now think about what that means. If there was manipulation in certain parts, how many other parts of the story could have been adjusted to serve a specific narrative? What if within the Vatican's secret archives there are documents that prove that the history of Christianity was shaped to consolidate the power of an institution? Why were these records never released? Could the truth be so impactful that it could forever change the way people view their faith? All of this leads us to a fundamental question. What else could be hidden? If we already know that Gospels were banned, that scholars were silenced, and that there are documents locked inside the Vatican that were never revealed, then it is inevitable to think that the story we were told may not be the complete story. If there are secrets so well kept, will they one day finally be exposed? Or will they remain, hidden forever, protected by those who don't want the truth to come to light? Now I want to know your opinion. Do you believe that the story of Jesus may have been manipulated over the centuries? Do you think there are secret documents in the Vatican that could change everything we know about Christianity? Comment here below. I want the truth to show that you also want these mysteries to be revealed. In recent years, researchers, archaeologists, and historians have delved deeper into the study of the forbidden Gospels, trying to find answers that the Church never wanted to reveal. Researchers continue to search for the truth, but will the Church one day admit it? With each new discovery, more evidence emerges indicating that there is much more about the history of Christianity that we still don't know. But what happens when these discoveries begin to directly challenge the official narrative we have been taught? The Vatican has always denied that it hides information from the public. But then why are there so many records that have never been released? Why is it that every time new finds emerge that question the official story, people try to discredit them or simply ignore them? In 1945 in Egypt, a revolutionary discovery changed the way we understand the beginnings of Christianity. The Nag Hammadi scrolls contained religious texts that presented a completely different version of Jesus' teachings, including the aforementioned Gospel of Thomas and the Gospel of Mary Magdalene. Most intriguingly, rather than being widely studied and accepted as part of the historical context of early Christianity, these documents were quickly rejected by the Church. This is because, unlike the canonical Gospels, these writings brought messages that did not depend on an organized religious structure, but rather on individual knowledge and spiritual awakening. If this were accepted, how would the Church maintain its authority over the faithful? Academic debates about these Gospels continue intensely to this day. Some scholars argue that they should be incorporated into the official history of Christianity, while others argue that they are just Gnostic texts with no relevance. But the main question remains unanswered. Why is the Church so afraid of these texts? If they are just old writings, why not let people read them and draw their own conclusions? If there is nothing to hide, why were so many barriers imposed on the study of these documents? And the discoveries don't stop there. In 2006, one of the most controversial texts in history finally came to light, the Gospel of Judas. This manuscript, written almost 2,000 years ago and found in a cave in Egypt, was studied by experts for years before being released to the public. And what he reveals is surprising. Judas Iscariot may not have been a traitor, but rather Jesus' closest disciple, chosen to play an essential role in his mission. This view directly challenges the centuries-old established narrative, raising the possibility that Judas's betrayal was actually an act of obedience rather than betrayal. If this is true, then how many other events in the Bible could have been reinterpreted or even changed over the centuries? More recently, new archaeological discoveries have raised even more questions. In 2012, researchers found a fragment of papyrus called the Gospel of Jesus' Wife, which contains the phrase, "Jesus said to them, 'My wife.'" This finding caused great controversy, as it suggests that Jesus could have been married, possibly to Mary Magdalene. Immediately, the Vatican and other scholars were quick to say the document was a fake, but many scholars argue that it may be a reflection of oral traditions from early Christianity. If legitimate, this fragment could indicate that the story of Jesus was deliberately altered to fit a narrative more convenient for the Church. But why does this possibility cause so much discomfort? What would happen if this version was accepted by the public? Meanwhile, more documents continue to be analyzed. In 2018, researchers announced that they were re-examining ancient manuscripts stored in monasteries and libraries around the world. Many of these texts have never been fully translated, and there is a real possibility that new, forbidden gospels could be discovered. But will these new discoveries be widely publicized? Or will they, as has happened so many times before, be discredited and forgotten, while the official story remains the same? Science and technology have also helped to reveal secrets that were hidden for centuries. New digital analysis techniques are allowing scholars to read erased or superimposed texts in ancient manuscripts. In 2020, for example, scientists used high-tech imaging to reveal hidden layers in Dead Sea Scrolls and discovered fragments that may contain still unknown information about the beginnings of Christianity. If these texts are analyzed without religious interference, will we finally have answers to some of the greatest mysteries of the Christian faith? And here's the big point. Even with all these discoveries, the Church remains silent. When was the last time the Vatican officially recognized a new gospel? When was the last time the Church opened its doors to allow scholars unrestricted access to the documents stored in the secret library? The answer is simple: never. Access is restricted, and only a select group of scholars, chosen by the Vatican itself, can examine the documents. And yet, most of what is stored there remains a mystery. Now, think about it. If the Church is truly dedicated to the truth, why not allow these studies to be carried out in a transparent way? Why maintain so much control over documents that could enrich our understanding of Jesus and his teachings? What if within these files is proof that the story we've been told isn't exactly the truth? If there is so much secrecy and resistance, then it can only mean that there is something much bigger being hidden. If we have come this far, it is because we are facing something much bigger than we imagined. With each new discovery, new questions arise, and the more we try to understand the hidden secrets of the Church, the more we realize that there is something being kept in the shadows. What is really hidden inside the Vatican's secret archives? Why is there so much effort to control this information? If the truth is something that should enlighten humanity, why keep it under lock and key? These questions echo through the centuries and remain without a clear answer. But one thing is certain: the history of Christianity is not as simple as we have been told. The forbidden Gospels, the apocryphal texts, the secret documents, all of this leads us to believe that there is much more to this narrative than what has been authorized to be taught. If today we can have access to fragments of these texts that were considered heretical and erased from history, imagine what else could be hidden. The Vatican, one of the most powerful institutions in the world, has records dating back more than 1,000 years. How many of these documents were kept out of the public eye? How much information about Jesus, his life and his true teachings, was deliberately omitted? The issue that bothers most is the Church's selectivity in relation to what should or should not be disclosed. Why were only 4 Gospels chosen as part of the Bible, while so many others were discarded? Who decided that certain scriptures should be destroyed and others preserved? The Church always claims that these apocryphal texts are not authentic, but was this decision made based on spirituality or political interests? After all, the creation of the Bible as we know it today was a process extremely influenced by power struggles and the desire to consolidate a single version of Christianity. And the most impressive thing is that, even with all this evidence, the Vatican has never made a clear statement about the hidden texts it keeps. The Vatican's secret archives remain inaccessible to the vast majority of researchers and historians. Why does a place that supposedly keeps only historical records need to be kept under such a high level of secrecy? What is there that cannot be revealed to the public? If these documents only contained common information about the history of the Church, there would be no reason for such protection. But the fact that access is so restricted indicates that something very important is being kept from the population. The truth is that the history of Christianity may have been written in a completely different way than we know it. What if the banned Gospels contain teachings of Jesus that were purposely removed? What if there is evidence that the resurrection was interpreted differently in the early centuries? What if we discovered that the Church altered historical events to maintain its authority over the faithful? All of this raises a fundamental question. If the truth were revealed, would people continue to believe the official version? There is a great fear within the Church of losing its influence. Since its founding, the institution has become the guardian of the Christian faith, shaping the way millions of people understand God and spirituality. But if we discovered that many of the beliefs we have been taught have been adjusted over the centuries to serve political and not necessarily spiritual interests, how would people react? This would explain why the Vatican tries so hard to control this information. After all, faith cannot be questioned if the only version available is the one that has been authorized. And don't think that this effort to hide the truth is over. Even today, any discovery that challenges the Church's traditional narrative is met with resistance. How many researchers have had their careers destroyed for trying to bring this information to light? How many ancient manuscripts have been found only to be quickly discredited or simply ignored? The manipulation of history is not something that only happened in the past. It continues to happen now, before our eyes, and only those who seek the truth can see it. But why is all this so important? Because people's faith cannot be based on lies. If there is information that has been hidden, if there are texts that have been censored, and if there are documents that could change everything we know about Christianity, then we have a right to know the truth. The Church should not have the power to decide what we can and cannot know. Access to information is everyone's right, and each person should have the freedom to interpret their faith without an institution imposing what is right or wrong. Now think about this. What if one day the Vatican were forced to reveal everything that was hidden? What if the banned documents were finally released to the public? What would happen to the Christian faith? What would happen to the Church? Would his influence withstand this revelation? Or would we see an unprecedented collapse of religious authority? The most impressive thing is that, despite all the evidence, there are still many people who don't want to question it. They prefer to believe that everything they have been taught is absolute and that there is nothing more to be discovered. But the truth cannot be erased forever. Sooner or later, something will happen that will bring this information to light. It could be a new archaeological discovery, a leak of documents, or even a change in the Church itself that forces it to admit certain facts. But when that happens, how will people react? I know you got here. It wasn't by chance. Maybe God spoke to you through this video. Maybe He is showing you that there is much more to be discovered, that the truth needs to be sought. If at any moment you felt something different, if something inside you awakened to this reflection, don't ignore this call. Subscribe to the channel right now and activate the bell so you don't miss the next videos. Here, we continue to investigate the hidden secrets, the mysteries of the Vatican, the forbidden texts, and everything the Church never told you. If God has brought you this far, it is because He wants you to continue this journey of knowledge. I know that you watched until the end. I want you to comment below. The truth always finds a way. This will show that you are part of this group of truth seekers, that you do not accept censored information, and that you want to know everything that has been hidden over the centuries. Now, leave a like, because this gives more people access to this information. The more interactions this video has, the more YouTube understands that this content needs to be spread. And don't leave yet. The next video is already appearing on the screen. Click now and continue this journey. What you discover next may be even more surprising.